Do you ever wonder how older games did their models? They look so nice, yet so simple. I wondered about that for a while during my journey with 3D art, and after a while I actually found a simple way of making these old photo texture models look amazing. After I posted some of the models I have made on Twitter, a lot of people were asking me how I did it. And well, I kinda found this as a good excuse to make something I've always wanted to do, a YouTube video. So before we start on this, I just want to be clear that I'm really hesitant to call this a tutorial, because I really do kinda suck at explaining. But hopefully it's still really useful for a lot of you who are wondering on what my process looks like. I also wanted to mention that the files for this model and a lot of other things I've made can be found on my Patreon, along with a Discord server invite where you can ask me anything and discuss about anything 3D related. And well, without further ado, let's get started. For this video I will be modeling this radio I had laying around in my house. I thought its shape was very straightforward, and that I could take photo textures out of it easily. So the first thing I did was to bring that radio into a place with nice lighting, and got a hold of the nicest camera I had available. In my case, I have a really good DSLR camera with a flash, but you might not have that. You can totally use something like your phone. Just make sure you are taking photos in the highest resolution available, because the more details we can make out of these photos, the easier it's gonna be for us to model things out of it. Now that we have our camera and our object on some nice lighting conditions, we can just start taking photos of all its sides by just moving it around. In this case, since the radio is just very blocky, we should be fine by just taking pictures of its 6 sides. And now that we have the photos of our object, we can go ahead and put them into a photo editing program on a computer. In this case, I'm using Krita because it's free. Because the photos are really high resolution, I just opened one of them so that the canvas could just take its size, and then I just imported the other images into the file. Now what we want to do is clean up our pictures. We're gonna get rid of as much of the background as we can. In this case I just used the eraser, and once I was finished erasing the background from all the photos, I moved them around to fit properly in the canvas. Make sure they're all roughly the same size in relation to each other. Once finished, we can just export our image. Make sure we keep a really high resolution. This image is gonna be both our reference for modeling and our textures to project onto the model. Here's how I did it. Alright, so first things first, we're gonna wanna import our image texture that we made as a reference plane here. So, as you can see in this video, I just import that and then I scaled it down to an acceptable size. As you can see, I'm using like a male model reference as to get an idea for the scale. So that's kind of helpful. It doesn't have to be perfect. None of this has to be perfect. In fact, most of this is just like making sure stuff lines up correctly. As you can see here, I'm just lining up the edges with the edges of our, of the object and the image. And this is very helpful if your image is like a high resolution. That's why I told you guys at the beginning that the higher the resolution, the better. So, as you can see here, I'm just making sure everything lines up roughly. It doesn't have to be perfect, but you gotta do your best to line this stuff up. And well, here I'm adding some edge loops in some of the places that I see are prominent in the object of our image. In this case the radio, right? On this like little edges that it has, I'm just adding some edge loops so that I can extrude it. Well, not really extrude it, but like move it out and make it have that shape. And well, as you can see here, I decided to use a mirror modifier, so I just like split my object into into halves, and then I just used a mirror modifier to make things easier for me, because I realized most of this is kind of symmetrical, at least for the beginning. I didn't really use it for the whole thing. Like, I'm just using it to make things easier for me, really. And as you can see here, I'm duplicating the reference and lining it up once again. We just, like, most of this is just lining stuff up. We line it up with with the image, make sure like things make sense, basically, and we just put it in like a better place. Just move it out back, and then I start working on the knobs. And well, as you can see with the knobs, I kind of realized it wasn't fully centered, so I kind of moved it around a little bit more. And I just corrected some normals for the knobs, and you know, just line it up. It's all lining it up, baby. I don't know why I said that, but yeah, it's all about lining stuff up. And yeah, a lot of this is basic modeling. You do have to, you know, you gotta have some basic modeling skills. This is not crazy. I'm just making sure it like kind of looks like what it actually looks like IRL. I kind of extruded that stuff a little out back. It doesn't have to be perfect modeling, by the way. I think I'm repeating that a lot, that it doesn't have to be perfect, but that's true, because with objects like this, the textures do the heavy lifting. Like, if you have a good textures, you're gonna have a good asset, I think, for this kind of style we're going for. Anyways, we're lining up the back of this. And yeah, we're just adding some edge loops on that little thing that it's intruding on the actual object IRL. The reason I'm doing that is because it just adds a little bit more detail, because we're gonna use a substance painter later for this, and when you're using the ambient occlusion, it's really gonna make things look a lot prettier, especially on like the little crevices and that stuff. Okay, as you can see here, I'm shading it smooth, and I'm adding some loop cuts so that it doesn't look all weird. But I will say, I kind of like, I didn't really do my best here. I added a lot of edges. That's probably not good for poly count, if you really care about that stuff. I mean, it's still an acceptable poly count, really, but since we're making like a PS2 style asset, this would obviously not fly in an actual PS2 game. So if you really care about poly count, don't do this. I would actually recommend like just going with an auto smooth for the knobs and then applying it, and you know, joining the knobs back together to the actual flat mesh. And well, I think I just like kind of got carried away here, so yeah, it's a bit of a mistake in my part, I'd say. Anyways, here I'm adding more edge loops on the details of that little screen there, and I'm just extruding along normals. And then I insetted the faces so that the normals don't look all weird due to the smooth shading. Well, I'm looking around the model, then I add some edge loops there to make that stuff, the edges there a bit more prominent. And now here I just apply the same texture that we're using on the reference plane, which is just like our image textures. And now it's time for, you know, projecting from view and lining stuff up. This is the fun part. Well, kind of the fun part. I think the whole texturing process is the fun part of all of this. So, as you can see, I have my object selected, and I'm basically just gonna UV project from view. Yeah, just line stuff up. A lot of this texturing is just lining stuff up, really, on this base image that we're using. We're gonna bake it later. And when you're lining stuff up, you gotta make sure, this is very important, you gotta make sure you have it's all just the object. You don't want to have some of the background picking up on your UVs, because then it really is gonna take away the effect. So if you are not careful and you have some of the background, it's better to just have less of the object, to cut a little bit of the object than to have a little more and have the background show, because that's really bad in my opinion. So just be careful with that. as you can see there, I noticed that little thing I didn't model, so I just quickly added a cube and then projected the textures on the cube. So yeah, I'm just gonna let this play out, and yeah, as you can see, I'm making the cube there, and then I'm just putting it there on the model in a place that makes sense, and then I just project the textures on the cube. And now you have like the USB ports all flat and nice. Again, we're just making sure it lines up properly, and you're gonna see some how do you say this? You're gonna see some stretched textures, but we can fix that later with cube projection, and just keep projecting it, selecting those faces, and just keep projecting them in a place that kind of makes sense. In this case, I'm just using the little dark part of the image texture of our object, and it looks good. So that's kinda, we're done with the front. Now we're gonna do the sides. It's the same process. As you can see, I just selected the coplanar faces, and then I selected those faces at the bottom and select them by coplanar tool. And we just line stuff up. That's basically all this is. It's just lining stuff up. Especially here we're using I'm using mostly just the knobs as a reference of how centered and perfect it is. So I kinda took my time here. It's important to take your time on this, because you really don't want to have some leaking going on. You wanna sell the effect. I'd say this is already looking kinda good, really. I mean, look at that. Now we just here on the sides of the knobs, I just projected from view, and then I selected the knobs there on the UV islands, and then put them on the front view where we can see the knobs on our image texture. And because I selected the whole thing, it kinda mirrors on the back, and it looks good. It goes all the way around. And now we're doing the other side, and here I actually didn't really like how it turned out, so I kind of went down later and changed it. You'll see that. But yeah, I was just kind of making sure it lines up, and you know. Alright, we have the front and the sides now. Now I'm doing the top here, and as you can see, same stuff, lining stuff up, making it make sense. And in this case, you can see I'm using some guidance on the buttons, especially because you really want things to line up. If they're not lined up, you're gonna end up with an asset that looks kind of bad. So that's the lesson of this video: line things up, bro. Look at that. Look at the buttons. Yep, I'm just moving them around, making sure they look good, or acceptable at least. It doesn't have to be perfect. Again, there I saw a little bit of weird leaking, so I just kind of stretch the faces so that it looked good. Here I'm just putting the antenna, which is whatever. I mean, it's not gonna be, I'm actually gonna go out and model the antenna physically, and because it's gonna be there like laying down, it's actually gonna, all the textures below it or surrounding it are gonna be occluded by the ambient occlusion in Substance Painter. So that's good. So it's gonna hide this second antenna on the texture, and people are not gonna notice. Anyways, here I'm selecting the back, and you know, gonna project this from view too. So and here I'm making sure things line up, but especially that little extrusion that we have there. I really want that to line up, so I just move the textures of the inside around so that I know there's no leaking on the outside, on like the top part of it, and it's just the inside, and I saw it looked good, so I just left it like that. And yeah, the model looks really acceptable now. It looks kind of cool. Now we just need the bottom, so same process for all the faces. Oh, by the way, yeah, here I'm just keep projecting. There I saw some leaking. Look, that's the thing I'm talking about. You don't want to have any leaking on your texture. So here I just selected the parts that were affected in the UV, and I just reprojected them and scaled them around. You really don't want the background on your objects. And there I'm actually lining up the lines of that little thing on the radio. You see like the lines are continuous from the back to the sides. I'm lining them up. Well, not yet, but you'll see that I will start lining them up. And I kind of get obsessed with it. Yeah, those are already lined up. I really got like crazy with it on the other side. Yeah, because they were not lined up at all. And yeah, and you can see there's like a little discontinuation on the lines there. So I just thought it didn't make sense. So I just stretched the faces there and made them connect. And now I'm just lining those lines up. Here I just reprojected the side because I really didn't like how it looked like. Then I rotated around a little because it wasn't really lined up on the image itself. And well, it's looking really nice already. Here I'm gonna make the antenna. And I'm just gonna project that stuff from view, and the antenna is just literally a cube, really. It's a cylinder that I turned into a cube for some reason. And it's shaded smooth, so that it looks like you cannot see the sides. You cannot see like the flat lighting. I shaded smooth. And yeah, I just projected from view and it looks good. Looks like an acceptable antenna for this radio. I moved around the UVs there so that they try to make them look like it like connects, but I didn't like how it turned out, so I just undid that. Now at the bottom, same stuff, and because no one's really gonna see it, I really didn't pay much attention to it. I just made sure it looked kinda good. So there it is. I think this is basically the first part of our texturing process all done. It looks good now, so we can go ahead and bake the textures. Okay, as you can see here, I made a new material which I applied to the whole entire object. This material was just an image texture with color grid generated, and it's a 148 by 148 textures, I think. No, 128 by 128, and I applied it to the whole entire object. And I made a second UV map, so this is important for baking. In case you don't know about baking in Blender, you need the first UV map, which is like the one the render is gonna see, which is like all those textures that we were lining up earlier. And the second UV map is gonna be our unwrapped object. So we're gonna go ahead and manually unwrap this thing, and that's gonna be our second UV map where the bake is gonna go to. So as you can see here, I'm just adding our seams, and it's basic UV unwrapping. So if you know the deal, you know the deal. We're adding seams on the sharp edges, making sure everything's properly unwrapped, and I'll get back to you when I'm done. As you can see here, I think I finished adding my seams, so I just unwrapped the things, made sure the textile density was nice, like how much space it takes on the UV map, and I'm just making sure some similar faces are the same sides. For example, the side there, I actually like forgot to add a seam there, so I just had to unwrap again by angle. I think I unwrap by angle. Yeah, angle based unwrap. And now with that unwrap, I'm just gonna select the faces that are similar again. Make sure they're the same size. In this case, like that little extrusion and the extrusion of the screen at the front, I made them the same size. The back and the front the same size. The sides the same size, but I think they're already the same size because, I mean, they're kind of like perfectly symmetrical. So the unwrap already automatically knew. Yeah. So in this case, you just wanna change the size of the things you want to have the most resolution and the things that you want to have less resolution. And yeah, once everything is to a good scale that takes up a good amount of space in the UV map, you can go ahead and pack the textures so that Blender puts them all together as best as possible inside the UV space while retaining the space, you know, that you scaled up and down on the different islands. Alright, something very important to note here is to add a margin to our UV islands. This is to prevent any leaking once we downscale our textures, because the final product is gonna be like a 2048 texture, which is really kind of against the whole PS2 thing. We're probably gonna downscale that to like 512, and to prevent any leaking, so that means that any weird part of the texture is gonna like invade the other island space. We are gonna have to add a margin so that everything is like safely placed on the UV islands and we prevent any leaking. So basically what this means, you don't want any islands to be touching each other, so margin prevents that. And well, we already packed our islands, and I think those are the UVs. I think we're already finished here. And as you can see, I deleted the grid textures because I didn't really need them anymore. And you're gonna see all the warp textures there. That's good. We don't want to use the main UV map that we're gonna use for baking. This is the one that's gonna be baked into. So this is fully normal. Don't worry about it. Now here on the material, I'm making a new image texture, and I'm gonna make it nice resolution so that we can work with it properly later. I'm gonna make it 2048 by 2048, and I'm gonna call it baked map or baked texture. I think I call it. I don't know. I really cannot see the video right now. Anyways, once we make the image texture, we make sure it's selected because that's gonna be the texture that we're gonna be baking into. As you can see here, I kind of made a mistake and put a color grid on it. We don't want to do that. We want it to be empty. I mean, I think there's no problem in having like some stuff, but just to prevent any issues, I just like it to have nothing. So make sure you have blank selected. Again, 2048 by 2048. We want plenty of resolution to work with. And yeah, make sure it's selected. Make sure your object is selected, and make sure you're seeing the normal UVs. Make sure, well, not the normal UVs, but the first UVs that we have, the ones that are not for the bake, the ones that are like really shitty and not unwrapped and that we did project from views. Make sure we are seeing those. Make sure we have the object selected. Make sure we have the image selected, the image we want to bake our textures into. And we just choose diffuse on the bake because that's all we really need here. No direct or indirect lighting, so that it's just the plain texture. And we're ready to bake. As you can see, make sure the camera is ticked on the first UV map, but not on the second one. and make sure the second one is the one selected. And yeah, we can just bake already. And Blender's gonna take its time. That's okay, just let it cook. And as you can see, we have some beautiful textures there on our bake. A nice 2048 by 2048 texture of a radio. So now we have our bake textures, and make sure you save that image texture somewhere, because if you Blender for some reason crashes or you close it, you're gonna lose the texture if it's not protected. So as you can see on the export, I just make sure our object is selected and I'm exporting as an OBJ. Make sure it's ticked to selection only, and we export it into any in this case I use Substance Painter, but you can do anything you're familiar with or anything that's free really, because it's kind of expensive. We bake our object inside our texturing software, and then we can start adding our baked texture. So in Substance Painter, I just make sure it's set as a texture, I add it to the project, and then I put it on to fill the whole UV tile, and it looks really nice. And I just turn off everything because I just work with the color textures, and I actually set the viewport to be only the base color, so it's not affected by any lighting. As you can see, I'm just adding some really nice details like dirt with ambient occlusion. I adjust all of that a little bit. It looks nice. That's the thing with the antenna. I said, like, we're not really gonna see the textures up there because it's gonna be occluded by the antenna. Now I just added this really cool material I found by another YouTuber that was talking about texturing low poly models in Substance Painter. I'll leave that video down in the description because it's really helpful, and I got that shader from that guy, so shout out to that guy. Here I just make sure it's set to multiply. Anyways, here I added I think it was a metal edgeware texture, and I'm just adjusting all of it so that it looks kind of nice. And then on those on the black mask that I added, I actually paint some parts black on places where it wouldn't make sense to have that like little dirt and smudges. So for example, the buttons at the top, I just went with the brush and set it to the black color and started painting those details away. And as you can see here, I'm kind of messing with different blending modes I can set to the stylized lighting. But I just landed on multiply because I think it's the best one for this. I did make a mistake. I should have messed with the opacity, because now the whole bottom is gonna be practically black, and I didn't really want that, but that's whatever. No one's really gonna look at the bottom. Anyways, when exporting, make sure you only have the base color selected. Export into the project file or whatever you want. And yeah, that's basically all of it. You're gonna see your really nice textures all exported in a single base color image that we can then just use in Blender or any software really, because we already finished our mesh. Okay, so now in Blender we can just add our textures really to our material, our final textures after Substance Painter. And as you can see, it looks very nice. This is ready to be downscaled to like a 512 texture, and you can use this in any indie game you want or whatever. It looks really pretty. And you can do this with any object you want. This is a really good texturing technique. It's using 2 bakings, the one in Blender and the second one in Substance Painter. So it's really nice. I actually don't think there's 2 bakings. I think it's just 1 baking, and then like you mess with the bake inside Substance Painter. Anyways, yeah, that's it for this video. I hope you learned something. I'm kind of bad at explaining things. I kind of talk too fast sometimes. If you have any doubts, don't be afraid of leaving a comment down below, and I'll try to explain stuff. And yeah, there's also a Discord server in my Patreon, which you can join and just ask me anything about all of this. Yeah, thanks for watching.